Imagine the softest sheets you've ever felt. Now imagine them getting even softer over time. I'm here to tell you about Boll & Branch and how you can discover this new level of softness with their iconic sheets. In a recent customer survey, 96% responded that Boll & Branch sheets get softer with every wash. They source the rarest 100% organic cotton for an incredible softness to start. Then they skip the toxins and harsh chemicals for a natural feel unlike anything else, and it all comes together with their signature weave. This special design feels buttery, breathable, and unlocks new levels of softness with every wash, and they stand behind their promise of softness. With their 30-night guarantee, you can wash, style, and sleep in their sheets for an entire month. If during the 30 nights, you don't love your sheets or feel them getting softer and softer, you can send them right back. No questions asked. So head to bollandbranch.com for 15% off your first order with code Odyssey. That's BOLL and branch.com. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
You've discovered your link to GoPowerCat.com's PowerCat podcast. Now, here's your host, GoPowerCat.com publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the PowerCat Questions podcast, brought to you by Fridge Wholesale Liquor here in the Go PowerCat home studio and dog adventure center. I don't know. Tim Fitzgerald, Zach Carlson, Ryan Gilbert, and Cole Carmody. It's a four-man crew. I've always wanted a foursome. Here we go. It's a foursome. It's a foursome with my fellas. Our segment sponsors, if they want to be mentioned anymore, are Tanner's and the High-Low. Tanner's, yeah. We tried to watch basketball last night, and one of Tanner's big nights is Singo, which is the song version of bingo. Not my thing. It's reaching a different demographic than old and male. Let's put it that way. And it was wall-to-wall people, so we couldn't watch basketball. So we went to another Aggieville establishment. Not Charlie Won't Mind so long. We went over there and enjoyed our basketball. Went home. I did. The young guys stayed out because they're young guys and they can do that. We tried to go to the High-Low. High-Low was closed Tuesdays. I forgot they're closed on Tuesdays. Anyhow, dogs are wandering from human to human, getting attention, kind of like I am in a bar, just wandering around, asking people to scratch me behind the ears, which is also what I do when I go to the Fridge. I get great service there. It's your questions from Wabash Station. We're going to start off with some football. I think we might touch on some baseball because Zach put it in the wrong part of the podcast because Zach...
It's okay. We'll get through.
Okay. And reading your questions in the first half is the one and only Ryan Gilbert.
First question is from K-Ned. What are your impressions on the maturity and honesty of the Will Howard press conference?
Yeah. Oh, he was good. I asked him flat out, what did Will Howard learn about himself from last year? And I thought his answer was spectacular. Had it up on the site. Let me ask you this. Gills, did you think he looked different?
Yeah, he looked more mature, yeah.
He did. He kind of didn't have the baby face. It's remarkable. He's not that much older. It's only been 3 months since we saw him, 4 months since we saw him last. And they've talked about in the weight room how he's kind of filled out. He's put on some good muscle mass, lost a little of his baby fat. But I think you could see it in his face. He didn't look like a little kid as much. It's going to be an interesting year for him to go from playing to not playing. But, man, I remember my freshman year. I was barely equipped to, handle everything that goes with being a college freshman, let alone be the damn starting quarterback. I don't know how he did it, and I thought he handled himself extremely well throughout the year.
I think that Will Howard has, you mentioned, a very interesting year. He might have the most interesting year of anybody that played last season because of everything that went on. And for him to come in and even have a chance to play without them even having an off season, I think is the most interesting thing. And take away how he performed, just the fact that the coaches have that much confidence in him right now that they want to put him in a package, a goal line package. I've heard them talk about that. That should just say a lot about their future plans right now with Will Howard.
I don't want to say that it's going to be a competition in the fall, but at least him playing last year and Skylar coming off of an injury, I don't think it's completely out of the question either. And I think that Will is showing, through the media, hey, I'm mature. I played last year. I learned about myself, and I'm learning about myself this offseason that, he's going to be a good quarterback once Skyler truly is out of the picture. But I don't know if that's going to be this year. He might have to go back to the bench, like you said.
Man, I tell you what, 2022, if Skyler stays healthy all through 2022 is going to be something else. Those two young quarterbacks are going to go at it. Mm-hmm. And Will Howard will have a big advantage because of what happened his freshman year. That playing time, now getting a year to absorb more of it and, play some cleanup duty. But I'm sure Jake Rubley will get some cleanup duty because he gets the 4 games and to maintain your red shirt. It's going to be really fascinating in 2022, that quarterback battle. We'll probably cover it a little bit at GoPowerCat.com. Just saying.
From Adam K63, do you see the switch in position groups with Messingham and Ray paying off in the long run?
Well, I understand the theory behind what they've said publicly. I agree that I think there was a little bit of the play caller knowing the tight ends and running backs skill sets a lot better than the wide receivers. But I just think the wide receivers underperformed. They can say what they want. Jason Ray got demoted. I truly believe that. They've told him now, we need you to pick it up. I've seen him pop up on a recruit lately, which is something we don't see much from him, which is troubling for any young coach to not be showing up on a bunch of recruits. I think the message was sent to kick it into gear or this isn't going to work out. His answer, I appreciate the spin he put on it, that he wanted more experience as a young coach, and he never coached the running backs and tight ends. It moves him closer to the ball. And all of that is true. That's not lying about how it'll impact his career. It's probably a little bit deceptive about why it took place. His first words in the quote, and I asked him the question, was, I really don't remember how it went down. Come on, man. You do too. You got your position changed. You're a receiver that got pulled off of receivers. You know how it went down. So hopefully it works out for the best. But when you have a young coach coaching receivers, that guy should have his guys locked in, focused, and he should be tearing up the recruiting trail. We haven't seen either one of those things from Jason, who is a fantastically nice guy. But I'm praying that Chris Kleiman doesn't fall into the same trap that Bill Snyder did. That you keep guys around because they're good guys and you know them and you trust them and you don't push the envelope. Eventually, Bill Snyder ended up with all of his friends coaching around him, but were the guys that nobody else wanted to hire. Right? We've already seen Courtney Messingham. We've already seen Scotty Hazelton go. I think Connor Riley will be. People come after him if they have a big year with running the ball. Van Malone's going to be a head coach. If I was an AD, I'd hire him in a second. And so you're going to have some of your better coaches get peeled off. And at some point, do you just end up with the older guys that nobody else really wanted, or the young guys who aren't dynamic enough to go recruit? It's a problem when you're Kansas State. It's not a problem when you're North Dakota State, because you can always fill that position in because someone wants to coach at Alabama. Someone wants to coach at any powerhouse, no matter what level. When you're Kansas State, you got to compete a little bit more for the coaches. So you better keep the good ones, and you better make sure the ones that aren't pulling their weight do. Everyone's got to row the boat.
Do you think this is a indictment on Messingham too? Is this something where Kleiman told Messingham, hey, we underperformed on the offensive side of the football, and we got to do something? And so this is I could totally see this as a situation where not only is this Jason Ray's last opportunity, but this might be Messingham, Kleiman telling Messingham, hey, if we have a problem at this position, you're the guy who's in charge, because he is the guy in charge on the offense. This is all on you. So figure out a way to fix it.
You were going somewhere totally different with that F sound. That's gonna happen.
I'm with you, Cole. That's kind of where I was going to go. With Ray, is there really much improvement? He gets Daniel Matter-Bebe, Nick Lenners, Sammy Wheeler. If those guys underperform, it looks bad for Jason Ray, but if they perform, as what they're supposed to do, especially Nick Lenners, I mean, waiting on Nick Lenners to finally perform, I don't think that's going to be coaching. That's up to Nick. The other two, if they play well, they were just used well on the offense, I think. I don't think there's any benefit, at least from Jason Ray's perspective, that you can look at with that coaching move being like, yeah, that was a good move. I mean, they're just tight ends and fullbacks, in my opinion. And then with Messingham, you move him out to wide receiver. If they're bad at wide receiver again, what are you doing? What are you doing? I think that this could go bad, not just for Jason Ray, but for Courtney Messingham. If the wide receivers are bad, it's going to be a rough offseason next year.
I'll be blunt here. I think the message that the receivers were fine, the coaching was bad, was sent by the fact that they didn't go get anyone out of the portal at this spot. They felt like they have the guys that can perform. They just didn't perform. I mean, I'm astonished they didn't get someone out of the portal at receiver. Just astonished. So that tells me they feel good about the spot. I don't. No. There's nothing that makes me feel good about receiver. I don't think they're dynamic enough at receiver, period. So they must attribute a lot of it to coaching, and we'll see if that improves. But you're right. I mean, now, Courtney, this is where he's coached. He's coached quarterbacks and receivers. But if you're having problems on the offense, and the offensive line got dramatically better, so it's not their fault. I thought they did a pretty good job. I thought they were better last year than they were with all the seniors the year before. And, of course, running back performed pretty darn well. I mean, you're going to give Brian Anderson credit for Deuce Vaughn. I don't know, but he got him ready. I mean, let's keep that in mind. We talk about Will Howard getting thrown into the mix as a true freshman. Well, Deuce Vaughn was too. Now, the difference is that Deuce could – if there was a weakness in his game, they could take him off the field and put someone else in, like Harry Trotter. But I thought the running backs performed well. They certainly caught the ball well. So that leaves you with two guys over there, probably to mess with. And well, it's not going to be quarterback. I mean, quarterback was what it was. So you're going to swap those guys, and hopefully that solves the problem. If it doesn't, it's going to be a rough season. They have to become more dynamic on offense. And or they have to become more powerful. If they want to be North Dakota State, was you can't stop us. Hey, we're going to run this play, but you can't do anything about it. And I don't know if they're even close to that level, so they're probably going to have to come up with more dynamic play calling that puts players in position to make big plays.
From Dr. J54, that proposed football practice facility, has anyone suggested putting a couple floors of parking under it? If there was a tunnel to Bramlage, it could be a highly desirable place to park.
Okay, well, I'm going to break some news on the podcast, which I don't normally do.
Wow.
I don't normally do that. This is a special day. And here's why it's a special day. It's because I'm an idiot and I forget to share it on Wabash. But I'm just going to put it out there.
So we're going to need to put it on Wabash before the podcast goes live, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So it's old news to everybody. Sorry.
Yeah.
If you're a member.
There is a plan circulating campus right now, being run through the departments that it impacts, most notably agronomy and grain sciences, to put the practice facility where it should be, across the street. And I don't know if it involves where the sheep parking is, or actually taking down some buildings that should have never been built there. When they built those ag buildings across the street from football, I was astonished. I'm like, what are you doing? I know that's their land. I get that. But athletics is so important to any Power 5 institution. You just landlocked your sports facilities. I mean, you just landlocked them. So now if you want to expand, you have to do it in a confined space, which is what they were going to have to do by building the practice facility in the east parking lot. It's a horrible plan. It's aesthetically, it's bad. It's bad. Parking, it causes issues that, look, we're spoiled by the parking, but it does cause issues. But aesthetically, it's horrible. I mean, you got a practice facility will be the first thing you see coming down Kimball. No, that's not what you want. Apparently, the plan is on the table to, I don't know how they're going to access it. It'll be a walkway over the top, like I've long said there should be. But, it'll be, they're looking at across the street into the ag fields. Somewhere will be the practice facility, which is where it always should have been. But again, it's It's going to be not walkable directly from your football facility, which is what they wanted. So it's less than ideal.
Need time to process this.
It's like half a mile, a quarter of a mile.
What?
It's right across the street.
Just right over the top street.
Couple hundred feet.
That is walkable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's walkable, but they wanted to be able to get into the new practice facility would have been connected to the Veneer expansion that went to the east.
Just build a little tunnel, and they can walk to it.
And that's what I'm wondering if they will do. Literally dig up everything, which will make Kimball even more fun for a longer period of time.
Well, they're already gonna. I mean,
I know.
Once they move closer to the east, finally they're almost done with the current intersection at Kimball and College. But the next stage is going to further and further and make it all the way out to, I think, Tuttle Creek. They're going to redo everything, put a median in.
I think maybe it just goes to Denison.
Well, I think they're going to put in a median up the little bend that's really dangerous.
It's not dangerous if you pretend you're NASCAR.
Mm-hmm. No.
I mean, if everyone would just get together and pretend going around that corner is like you're in a racing event, we'd all be fine. You rub some bumpers. You don't see NASCAR guys flipping each other. Oh, yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, never mind. But put a tunnel under there.
If you're going to shut that down, you might as well say, hey, if we're going to build if there's a possibility that we could expand to the other side, we might as well put a tunnel in. And even if you're not going to expand, put a tunnel in so people can cross.
Right. I agree with that totally.
For games.
And then Google how the Dutch put a tunnel under a highway in one weekend. Have you seen that?
No.
It's unbelievable. They actually built a tunnel under like what would be our interstate highway in one weekend.
Wow.
I'm not sure how they did it. But basically the tunnel's pre-built. They take out the roadway, shove the tunnel in place, and build the roadway back over the top of it.
I hope J.E. Dunn is listening to this.
I'm sure they do. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure they've taken a lot of my ideas for the Shamrock Zone and made them reality. I like big TVs. They're putting in big TVs. My idea.
You like bars, and they're putting in bars.
They're putting in a bar. I like suites. They're doing that too. It's all my ideas.
Do you like sweets?
I do like sweets, so they better have candy available too. And I like party decks, and they're going to have one of those. It's pretty much all me. And I'm Irish, and they named it the Shamrock Zone. Just saying. But anyhow, that plan's out there. I don't know if it's the plan that's being acted upon or if they're still just reviewing what is possible with putting it across there, if it's feasible. How does that impact those buildings that are there, which, seems ridiculous to tear down and rebuild, but maybe that's part of the deal. Maybe athletics rebuilds it. So I don't know. All I know is I'm worried about where the sheep are going to poop.
Where are the sheep? The sheep used to be where the foundation is.
The sheep have wandered into the middle there, that one parking lot. I think maybe they wandered back too. I don't know. It seems like...
I couldn't tell you where the sheep are. Because where I remember the sheep have been displaced by a...
You seem like a guy that would know where the sheep are, but that's just me.
I hope you're not trying to say what I think you're trying to say.
I'm sorry, I was bad.
No, I'm out of here.
You can't. You're asking the questions.
Next question. Buckle up from El Camino Cat. Were the John Curry years at K-State the pinnacle for department-wide athletic success? In those 8 years, football had a conference championship, 2 10-win seasons, and 7 bowl appearances. Men's basketball, a conference championship, an Elite Eight appearance, 6 NCAA tournament appearances. Baseball, a conference championship, NCAA Super Regional, and 3 NCAA appearances. Women's basketball, 4 NCAA appearances and 2 NITs. Volleyball, a Sweet 16, 5 NCAA appearances. And track, the rise of Eric Kennard. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
you did.
Good for me. Look at me go. And Big 12 women's track champion.
Kids.
It just says champ. Does that mean...
Did they win?
I don't know.
I don't think they
follow
won.
track. I'm sorry.
I don't think they won track when Curry was here.
I think they did.
Anyways, looking back, it sure seems like we had everything rolling pretty well, says El Camino Cat.
Well, in some ways, but I mean, there's no world in which you can give John Curry credit for Bill Snyder.
No.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to fire him. I mean, he actually went to his boss and asked, how do I fire Bill Snyder? And even Kirk Schultz, who was out of touch, still laughed at him. I mean, he ran off a basketball coach that a big part of the fan base liked, who had, a lot of those tournament appearances. Baseball wasn't his coach. I mean, this was my thing. This is why I said what I did about Gene with the on the daily delivery. We give ADs a lot of credit for wins and losses, but I mean, unless they're the one directly hiring the coaches, you're my guy, and boom, something takes off. There's certain athletic departments who keep hiring Arkansas State football, whoever their AD, whoever's doing their hiring, and they keep hiring good coaches. It's been incredible. Who's your coach now? Who they just hired?
I couldn't tell.
They hired someone. Oh, they hired the Tennessee guy, Jones. Got fired there. Anyhow, I mean, unless they're doing that, where you can obviously point that they're great at hiring, it really comes down to fiscal management, which John Curry was great at, and fundraising, again, good. So what I would give John Curry credit for is the off-the-field stuff. The on-the-field stuff happened, I truly believe, despite him. Or, he was working against his coaches consistently. He was threatened by alphas, so he had Deb Patterson fired, and she was probably the most alpha coach I've ever been around. He ran off Frank, another alpha. He hated Bill, clearly an alpha. It was just an ongoing situation of harassment with his coaches. And most coaches feel that way. I mean, he probably was just hand off to Cliff Revolto because he didn't care. I don't know what K-State pays Cliff Revolto, but I would like to take all the money being earned by coaches who aren't making a profit for the institution and just give it to Cliff Revolto. Because he's not earning money for the institution, and he kicks ass with what he has, and he's underfunded. That's the coolest thing. Go back to the indoor facility thing. Once they get that built, he's going to have a badass indoor facility right next to his track for indoor track. I mean, K-State could really be in a special place. Now, if they would fully fund men's track, maybe we'd see something happen. The fact we're not fully funded in men's track is absurd and obscene to me. It really is.
How are they not fully funded?
What are you doing over there? You're making... Oh, is it your chair against the wall?
I was just...
We're kind of packed in here. This is not as ideal as the old
We're
one.
not socially distanced, are we?
No, we're all good. They don't have the full allocation of scholarships for men's track. I'm almost positive. It's actually men's cross country isn't scholarship.
What?
I'm pretty sure. That's why they always suck.
It makes sense.
And that's the big advantage of you can scholarship a woman in cross country, and then you don't have to use a track scholarship. And they compete in both. And maybe I just made all that up, but that's me. No, they're not fully funded in men's track. I'm almost positive.
So do you think that the John Curry years, you said that they won in spite of him. If John Curry were the AD right now, would the Shamrock Zone be going in? You think that would be going in no matter what?
All
the money doesn't really matter.
The building.
Gene Taylor is a good replacement for John Curry when it comes to the business of college athletics.
See, the problem I have with John is he was smarter than his predecessors in fundraising and building. He was. But he also thought he was smarter in everything else. And Gene Taylor doesn't believe that. Gene Taylor came in and looked at the fundraising and said, well, I'm just going to keep doing this. And granted, he's the one who ended up removing Bill Snyder, but it had to be done. I mean, it was just sliding down so quickly towards the end. They were headed to a 3-win season. I mean, it was just coming apart if you really knew everything going on behind the scenes. So, he's trying to fix those things without being over dramatic, and he's trying not to break things. So you see that reflected, El Camino getting kind of back to it, is he's overly cautious as opposed to John was overly reckless with handling of personnel. Gene's overly cautious. He can imagine a worse baseline, which I can't, than what we're seeing from Bruce Weber, because now he thinks he's bottomed out. So why would you fire him after he bottomed out? when he's going back up. It's just kind of a, nothing ever gets solved. Honestly, I'm surprised they haven't made a change in women's basketball. I think he boxed himself in by his statement, I'm not going to fire coaches after a pandemic. Mm-hmm. Because I have a feeling they want to make a move on him, but they won't do it because he said that. And plus, again, you don't sign an Olympic sport coach to a contract and buy it out. You ride it out. Unless it's, unless there's something wrong going in the program. If they're cheating, academics stink, there's player issues, maybe they're a bunch of criminals running around town. If they're good citizens and they're not cheating, you keep them on. You don't take a bad financial situation and make it worse by buying out a coaching contract.
In a non-revenue sport.
Non-revenue sport, which is everything except men's basketball and football. And baseball in certain schools.
Not K-State, though.
I wish it was. Wouldn't it be fun?
Not yet.
I feel like we talk about that all
2,500 fans a game. God, that'd be awesome. I mean, we don't have enough to do in Manhattan. It'd be fun to go out to the ball yard and have a beer and a dog. No offense, guys. And, watch the Cats play. I feel like Pete could get it there. Just needs to get some breaks and stay healthy and get going here in the Big 12.
Speak of the Devils, last question of the first half is from Ohio Power Cat. I was ready to jump on the baseball bandwagon in hopes of having something to cheer for. However, after the series sweep with Oklahoma State, I have to ask, are the Batcats really not that good?
I'll take this one to start. And they're a good baseball team. Like, I am in full belief that this K-State team can win games in the Big 12. I picked them 5th in an article that I put up on the site, and I think they can get there. The pitching is what makes this team competable. Is it competable a word?
Competitive.
But I like competable a lot.
Competable is a good word.
Okay. There you go. Just Dick Vitale the shit out of that thing.
They can win, and this weekend is going to be interesting because Texas Tech, I think, last time I looked, was number 4 in the country.
Just number 4.
Just number 4.
They're not top 3.
They're not 13 like Oklahoma State was.
Yeah.
They're going to be fine. I think they're going to be fine. The Big 12 is just ungodly good.
It really is. And we learned Wednesday during our Zoom press conference with Pete that they're beaten up. They're playing 2 freshmen on the infield. Their first baseman's injured. They're having center field issues. They're kind of searching around at that spot to find someone. And they're doing what no team can do is they're extending possessions, essentially, to use a football or basketball term. Anytime you commit an error, you let a good team get some more cracks at the bat, you're going to pay for it. So that's what they did at Oklahoma State. They know they have some issues right now. They have some ongoing. Cole said he learned about injuries on the press conference today when Coach Hughes brought him up. So it's going to probably be, if they can get one out of this weekend, I'll be overjoyed. This is a really good Tech team. What K-State needs is they need a really good defensive game with an arm that provides, limits the hits, and then when you field the ball, you throw it to the right place.
K-State needs, if they can get 4 runs, realistically, if you get 4 runs, you have a chance to win the game.
Right.
And they have not gotten 4 runs recently. I think they scored 5 runs, but they gave up 14 last Friday night. But if Jordan Wicks, the Friday night starter, pitches like he can, which he's going to be a top 15 pick in the first round in the Major League Draft, which is so cool. I mean, when was the last time K-State had anybody in any sport go that high in a draft? I don't know if it's ever happened. That'd be a question for you, Fitz. But, I mean, if they can get 4 runs on Friday night, they're going to have a chance to win because Jordan Wicks is that good.
Very good. Zach, you got lots of thoughts on that? Thank you.
I think that the amount of offense is just lacking. You can have Jordan Wicks, but like you said, you need the offense to back it up. And if you're only asking for 4 runs, I still don't feel like that's enough. I feel like you need 6 or 7.
For this team, though, I mean, I'm not so sure right now they're capable of scoring 6 or 7 in the
that's what I mean. Is like we can say this team's good, but if they can't score 6 or 7 runs night in, night out, are they really that good? I mean, I get that the Big 12's good, but we can talk about pitching all we want, but pitching doesn't win games. You need the bats to do it.
I think this is a Bruce Weber baseball team as far as defense. And it's worked in the past. I mean, you think about when K-State was offensively challenged with basketball, but they were damn good on defense. It still won them some games. And they finished middle of the conference, made the NCAA tournament. Now, I'm not saying that it's an exact same scenario, but if you are good pitching, if you are good on defense, you can finish in the middle of the conference and make the NCAA tournament. And I think every single K-State baseball fan would be ecstatic if that happened.
Very good. That's the first half of the Power Cat Questions podcast, brought to you by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. On the back half here, we're going to dig into some hoops, and Zach's going to take the comm and lead us through some more of your questions from Wabash Station.
The Power Cat Podcast will be right back.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
We now send it back to the Power Cat Podcast.
Welcome back to the Power Cat Questions podcast, brought to you by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. I am Tim Fitzgerald. We got a quadette.
Quartet.
A quadraphone. I don't know. I think quartet's probably right. Zach Carlson giving me funny looks. Ryan Gilbert looking funny. And Cole Carmody, the world's nicest guy, in between them. And 3 dogs arrayed, sleeping in what is becoming an exceedingly hot studio. We've got 7 beings in this room. That's okay. This is the first time we've had all 4 in here. Have you had the COVID yet?
No, but I got my first vaccine.
That's right. That's right. You didn't have the COVID. You were supposed to be home today,
but
a
lot of other things. Yeah. I was going to go home, and my stepsister's got COVID, so I'm here.
That's good. I still don't think she has COVID. They just told you that. Zach has had the COVID.
I think I might have COVID again.
Yeah, you sound horrible. How's the smeller going? Is it the sniffer doing okay?
No. I mean, it's like 50-50. Okay. I can smell like body wash when I smell it like really quickly, but...
How about your Axe body spray? Can you smell that?
I don't use Axe body spray. I'm not in middle school, Fitz.
You seem like a Dove Men Plus Care type of guy.
No. Absolutely not.
What's wrong with that?
It's a good thing.
I've gotten some of that, and the body wash is way too runny. It's like water.
Yeah.
Old Spice only.
Old Spice has good products now. Like, not their actual Old Spice. But I'm using some Old Spice lotion that is actually nice. It's too fragrant, but it actually works really well. So it keeps me supple. We're going to move on now to more of your questions from Wabash Station. Zach Carlson takes over as we turn our attention to hoops, and this could get interesting.
From El Camino Cat, is Mark Smith an upgrade over Dejuan Gordon?
You know, I'm getting mixed reviews on that. But I'm going to say yes, and here's why. Mark Smith is known as an outside shooter. He has regressed statistically as he's gone through his career, which is troubling. But those I've spoken with attached to Missouri thinks he just lost his confidence, that the coaching didn't work in him. You know, maybe it's about coaching style. And I know this, Bruce Weber will build his confidence with hugs and smiley faces. So
and text messages.
Text messages at 11 p.m. in the middle of the night to Bruce. I don't think his confidence will struggle. He'll be given an opportunity to score. And One of my buddies who's a Mizzou fan said when he got going, it was pretty fun to watch because he can stroke it from all over. So that's not Dejuan Gordon. He thought he could do those things, but he can't. The question becomes, can he defend at that level, and can he rebound at the Dejuan level and do the athletic things? He doesn't finish well at the rim, which Dejuan does. So we know that. But I'm also told that he's a really good locker room guy. When you see someone that's transferred from Illinois to Missouri, now Missouri to Kansas State, I immediately think this guy's trouble. They said just the opposite. He's loved in the locker room. In fact, every one of his teammates at Missouri tweeted, their support of him when he transferred out. So that's good. And honestly, that's an upgrade over Dejuan, who was generally okay in the locker room, but we've since heard now that there were some issues there. So while they will play the same role, they will do so differently. And I think having a three-point shooter in that role is much more productive for the team as long as Selton Miguel can step forward and improve his outside shot. Because, he can take it to the rack and get some of those things done, but you need him doing both things. They're really deep in the backcourt, and I don't understand it. I think they needed a big guy out of the portal, a 6'7", 6'8" guy that can play the four, but they're apparently going to go very, very small next year.
You nailed it right on the head. You said everything I was going to say. I mean, to answer the question, yes, 100%, because Mark Smith can hit an outside shot. So Dejuan, he really couldn't do that. And, like you talked about kind of the issues in the locker room with Dejuan, Smith is not a bad guy at all. Just kind of needed a change of scenery from Missouri. So I'm happy for him to come to K-State, and I look forward to seeing what he can do. And I'd rather take him over Dejuan. You mentioned he's not going to go grab as many rebounds and get to the rim, but he's going to be a guy that Trey Harris and Brian Patrick were supposed to be at K-State, that guy that comes in and hits those threes, or even Kazuki for that matter. So I'm excited for him. I really am.
I think it's interesting because if Selton Miguel can turn into the player that Dejuan Gordon was turning into, this is a tremendous get. But if that doesn't happen with Selton Miguel, not only do you lose, I think, a lot of athleticism, you lose defense and rebounding too, which you talked about, Fitz. But if Miguel can do what Dejuan was doing, and Mark Smith can come in and average 10 points a game like he has everywhere else, I mean, I think this is a win-win. But I think a lot of that depends upon Selton Miguel, and maybe I'm off on that, but I think Selton Miguel has to take a step forward next year in order for this basketball team to be better.
I think you make a good point. I think in the coach's eyes, Selton Miguel's Dejuan's replacement, and they're bringing in a guy to do something that they just don't have on the roster, the 6'5" guy that can shoot it from outside. So I think that's fair to say that they're looking at Selton to replace Dejuan, not Mark Smith. It might replace his roster spot, but his role is going to be different.
I'm curious, what do you guys think over Selton, Dejuan, or probably not Dejuan, Selton, Mike, and Mark? There's only going to be three of those guys that can start, because Mark told me he's not going to. I guess, yeah, pardon me, too. I can't talk today. Everyone's
That's all
right. Because Mark told me he's not going to play the 4 spot. So that makes me think that, maybe a guy like Landers or Lingard might start at the 4. If Murphy's healthy, knock on wood, he'll be there. So who would you take on the bench there?
Well, I find it curious that they're not getting a 4. Mm-hmm. So that tells me that they think they can get Carlton Lingard healthy, or they think Suri Lewis is the real deal. Mm-hmm. And I kind of agree with them. He shows flashes there that there's something about this kid that he could be really disruptive at the 4. You know who you reminded me of? He reminded me of some of those guys that I watched the Pac-12 put on the floor. Mm-hmm. Just kind of like their hair's on fire, and they're incredibly athletic, and they do stuff, and you're like, what the hell? You didn't know that went in. I saw a guy for, I don't even know who it was, maybe Oregon State, that his first shot was the ugliest thing I've ever seen, and then he hit his next 3. I mean, it was just kind of an inconsistency about him, but he was incredibly athletic. So that tells me they do have belief in that Landers going to come in and give them something, and maybe Suri Lewis is the other guy. I'm honestly really shocked there hasn't been someone else into the portal. I'm really, really surprised. I'm pleased. Don't get me wrong. I'm not cheering for that. I just am really – a guy like Carlton Lingard seems like a guy that might say – I could play a whole hell of a lot more down a step. But the key with him is he doesn't see himself as a post, even though he's 6'11", whatever he is. He sees himself as a stretch 4. And if you can find the right matchup where he can defend and shoot and do the things that he can do from the outside, that could be really advantageous. But this conference in all of college basketball is getting smaller. Mm-hmm. It just is. And you already have a true post. Whether it's Bradford or Ezeagu, it doesn't matter which one's on the floor. You've got a true post on the floor, which is becoming rarer and rarer in college basketball. But I think the best teams tend to have that too. I mean, we saw that, McCormick's more of a true post. You saw some of the good teams that really have that. So I like that. But are they dominant enough in the middle to free up everyone else to be four guards or four, small forwards and down? I don't know. Well, we'll see how they play it out, but they must feel good about that power forward spot, or they plan on going without a power forward.
From El Camino Cat again, is the addition of Mark Smith and Marquise Noel. Is that how you say it?
We were talking about that last night.
Noel?
Marquois. I think it's
Marquois Noel.
Is it French? Marquois. Is that a signal that the staff thinks they need to win now?
Oh, I think they absolutely know that. I don't even think that's pressure from above or from below or sideways from the fans. They just know they need to win. I mean, they're competitors. They don't find anything acceptable about 3 wins followed by 4 wins in conference play. They want to be back in the damn tournament, and that's what I think their threshold should be. I'm not sure Gene Taylor's holding them to that, but I think that's what it should be. Yeah, they got to get better, man. They're not very good. They're not good enough. They got nice pieces, but not enough pieces. I wish they'd go back in the portal and find another piece. Not another guy that could play the point. Both these guys can play the point. Mark Smith might be 6'5", but he's played the point some. So, I mean, it's just weird. I know they want to get Pack off the ball, but you put Pack off the ball with a 5'7" point taking over, you are really small. You got 2 under 6 foot guys. I mean, that's hard to use on the defensive end. It just is. You're trying to defend really athletic 6'4" guys when you're 6 inches shorter and, giving up a lot of weight. It's going to be very difficult.
I think we should take a second and just kind of talk about Marquise, whatever his name is, Noel, if we can pronounce that.
Marquise.
He's 5'7", which I think everyone's been talking about, so that's going to be something to keep an eye on. I've heard that he kind of plays around that and finds ways to get to the rim and goes over and around his defenders. But I see him as being a backup to Nigel Pack. I don't see anything else he's really going to be doing. So if he's accepting that role, I think he can make a good contribution to the team. I know he's had some issues at Little Rock from where he transferred from and departed the program in February. So we'll see how that works out in his locker room issues. But if he buys in and he cares, I know he was posting on Instagram the other day that he was in the gym. It was his 3rd workout of the day. So I think he's buying in and he wants to win. We'll see if they can keep him in check.
Because you're essentially replacing Rudy Williams with Noel. I mean, that's essentially what they did.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's 100% what they did, yeah.
And it's an upgrade. I mean, I don't know much about Noel, but I don't know how much better Rudy Williams was going to get. And I think that's evident by him landing at Coastal Carolina, and good for Rudy. He's a good kid, but I think that they got better with Noel, and I think they got better with Smith. Regardless of the people that have left the program, I think that these 2 guys make the program better. So, yeah, to answer the question, they know they need to win, and I think that this moves them a step forward. Maybe not, it doesn't point the needle in the direction completely, but it's definitely trending up.
I don't know what happens to Mike McGurl.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I think the question about you have to put, you can only start 2 out of 3, and Mike McGurl was included. I think that Mike's probably back to being the 6.
He should be.
If they want to make
that's
a
his
tournament,
role.
they got to have him at the 6. He can't really.
And I don't see Bruce doing that. I just don't see him relegating a guy that came back for an extra season to being a backup. But I would disagree with that's a demotion in role. I would believe that there's some nobility in being that 6th man coming off the bench to bring energy and defense. And Mike embraced it when he was younger.
But the end goal was to be maybe a starter when he was a senior, so I don't know if he'd be okay with going back to it. Yeah. I could be wrong.
I don't know.
Next question is from WCat. What are your thoughts on the Big 12 basketball coaching changes?
Well, Iowa State probably needed to do it.
Really?
That was going to happen.
I'm astonished they paid him that money.
Mm-hmm. True.
I mean, fans on our board have said, well, if Iowa State can pay out that, it's fiscally irresponsible to do it. It just is. He should have never been in a position to having a contract that would have been $5+ million to buy out. So, again, I think ADs in a general sense in college athletics do a crappy job of being stewards of their financial responsibilities. Too much promised money in college athletics. Too many buyouts. Give them more money up front with less on the buyout. Make them perform now, and if they don't, see ya. Here's your buyout of the Dairy Queen gift card. It's just me, but I don't mind get Dairy Queen. I mean, it's lovely in the summer. Oklahoma, that caught me off guard, but makes sense. I mean, especially with Lon's son getting a head coaching job in Vegas, so I see them probably relocating to Vegas and just, being a dad and a grandpa and playing a lot of golf, which is good. I mean, Lon always has the big golf tournament in Vegas every year for Coaches versus Cancer, and make that job a lot easier. Who else? Who am I forgetting?
Texas.
Oh, Texas. He Dana Altman the crap out of that thing, didn't he? I mean, that's exactly how Dana Altman left K-State. They, had a decent year. I think that was their NIT year where they went to the Final Four of the NIT. Looked like things were turning, and he goes, adios. I know you guys want me fired eventually. That's exactly. I mean, Shaka knew they were stalking him, and losing in the first round of the tournament made people unhappy. And he got out of town and went to a great basketball school where basketball is king, and maybe he can get the type of players he needs to get back to his VCU style of play, which always baffled me. He played one style at VCU and changed the style when he came to Texas. Just never made sense to me. Got closer to it this season, but I think he felt too much pressure to get 5-star, 4-star guys that weren't going to do the dirty work.
Marquette just seems like a good fit for Shaka Smart.
I agree.
It seems like a good type of school for him to go to. Plus, if he does well there, I could see him going back to a Power 5 school in the future.
Yeah, I don't because I could see Shaka doing well there and staying because, I mean, that's essentially a Power 6 school,
Yeah.
And it's really important. Marquette's got a big basketball budget. I could see Shaka going up if he gets going at Marquette. Brad Stevens going to the NBA.
Up as in the NBA, not the Power 5.
Right.
Okay.
I think
that's fair.
Shaka is a lesson for everyone that Texas is attempting to hire. You're going to be number 2 at best at Texas. At best. I mean, fans don't care about basketball. They just don't. They don't show up. They don't care. They love baseball. Hell, when they were rolling, they loved women's basketball. So, I mean, it's just not important at Texas.
Building a new arena, though.
They are building a badass new arena, which will be interesting. It'll be probably great for concerts.
Probably might be one of the smallest in the conference. 10,000 seats, I think, or something. 12,000.
TCU is.
Yeah,
one of.
Yeah.
Not the
and plus,
sized.
Texas sounds great, but there's so many distractions. They're just that network. They can deny it all they want. That network's a problem. It's an ongoing distraction. Making breakfast with Shaka Smart. How to wake up with Shaka Smart.
Let's bring Wally on here. He can give us his statistics.
Oh my God, it's just I'd be very, very leery of it. I almost feel like they need to hire the Les Miles of basketball coaches to handle all that and let the associate head coach actually do the coaching.
Paging Bob Knight.
Oh, God, can you imagine? Curse words with Bob Knight.
Who else could coach? Dickie V?
Oh. No, I don't know. I'm happy for Shaka. They really want Chris Beard. No. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm rooting for Texas Tech to hang on to him, but he is a Texas alum, and Texas is, I feel like right now he's trying to drive him crazy. How about $5 million? How about $5.5 million? How about $6 million? If he goes, he's going to get paid serious money, and that's who they want. But they might settle on another K-State coach. Who knows? Or KU coach in this case would be Turgeon, Wichita State coach. Mm-hmm. That's a bad fit. Yeah. Do that. That'll be fun. That little smurf.
How about Frank staying at South Carolina, meaning that Mike Boynton stays at Oklahoma State and gets a hefty hefty contract there.
Okay, here's my theory. Frank played chicken with him. Oh, we love it here. In other words, I'm not leaving unless you pay this huge buyout. And they realized we can't right now, so we're going to hang on to you. We'll get Boynton later. Which, I haven't seen the contract. I don't know what's in that contract. Maybe there's a big buyout. Maybe there's an escape. I don't know. Mike Boynton will be at South Carolina eventually. May not be in 5 years, but he's going to Bob Huggins someone and end up there. Oh, I think it's inevitable, but for the sake of the conference, I hope Boynton stays because I love that dude.
I mean, really, it's and even consider K-State. The rumors of Bruce potentially retiring at one point. That's 6 coaches there that could potentially leave.
It's crazy.
Scott Drew. Well, I haven't even talked about Bill Self either. Scott Drew might be the only coach.
Yeah.
That's truly safe in his position or
Jamie
not
Dixon,
looking to leave.
so yeah.
Jamie Dixon as well, like everybody else could potentially change. Other than Bob Huggins. Bob Huggins might retire at some point too.
What's the best job available in college basketball right now? Is Indiana still open?
No, they
Mike
got
Woodson.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that totally.
Texas?
Yeah.
As weird as it is to say, Texas is probably the best job.
Well, Scott Drew's not going anyplace unless it's a private school. Period. I mean, read into that what you want. This is not going to happen. He's not going to go anywhere where you're subject to Freedom of Information Act. And I think Oklahoma, I'm telling you, Frank Martin is the perfect fit for that job. They will freaking love him, and he'll kick it back into gear being at a school that cares about basketball. But I think it's funny that 2 of the top 6 guys are former K-State coaches. Mm-hmm. If they hire Altman, literally mimicking what K-State did, it would just be hysterical. But why would Altman go? The Pac-12 is now finally breaking through and getting some love.
From KNED, who would you rather have Wichita State's conference championship first 4 season, or would you rather have Houston's Final Four season?
Well, you want the Final Four. I don't understand the question here.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy answer for me.
I could play devil's advocate on this one.
Okay, go. You want the conference championship?
Well,
did they share it?
Look at where Wichita State was last year, and look where they are now. Oh. Houston has been good for the past few years. I mean, Kelvin Sampson's a heck of a coach. Wichita State was at K-State level. They had everybody leave. It was more than K-State. So I think when you take into expectations, people at Wichita State are probably a little bit more ecstatic than the people at Houston are right now. Not to say that Houston's Final Four is, tainted in any way, but they didn't even play a single-digit seed the whole entire tournament. So I can understand the question as far as this actually being a question. Now, granted, I would rather have the Final Four, but I can see how if you think Wichita State's conference championship from now compared to where they were a year ago, how you could see how that maybe would be a little bit more attractive.
I think, when you put it in that context, like when did Greg Marshall get fired? Was it September?
Yeah.
October? Whenever it was, if you would have told them at that moment, would you rather be in the Final Four this year, or would you rather win the conference championship? I mean, you'd want, obviously, the Final Four, but considering what Wichita State's status of the program was, you'd think that both of those were completely unrealistic. So I can see why you can appreciate the Wichita State conference championship, but I'd still take Houston's Final Four. But I get the argument that Wichita State was in shambles and they were able to pull out a conference championship and they're back to where Wichita State basketball has and probably should be. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, Wichita State had no expectations, and there was a lot of expectations for Houston. But at the end of the day, I'm never going to pick a conference title over a Final Four.
Let me spin off this question. If you're Kansas football, do you mimic what Wichita State did in basketball and just let your interim coach take the year and see what happens?
No. Wichita State's had success.
What do you do? If you don't let the interim, who are you going after?
Well, does Wichita State have an athletic director right now?
You mean KU? No.
Well,
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
well, that's my point. Is you don't have an athletic director. the new athletic director will have to come up with it, but I have a sense that nobody wants that job. I mean, it's kind of like, hey, you get to be the head of the San Diego Zoo, but you're also going to have to shovel elephant shit because there's a whole bunch about hit the ground in there. I mean, you've got a big pile left by Les Miles, and Bill Self might be leaving you one of the biggest messes in college athletics if it plays out. You'd have to pay me a lot of money that they're not willing to pay to be the athletic director of Kansas.
But guys have egos. There's a huge difference, I think, between basketball coaches and football coaches. The egos in football compared to the egos in basketball. I mean, when was the last time you wouldn't see a football coach leave Texas to go to, say a school like Marquette? I can't think of it off the top of my head, but you wouldn't see that in football. In basketball, it happens.
Well, you can still compete for a national championship at Marquette. The equivalent being leaving Texas to go to, can't even think of an equivalent, Cincinnati.
Kentucky. Cincinnati.
You can win a lot of games, but you don't get a chance to play for a national championship.
Yeah.
Boise State.
Central Florida.
South Florida. One of those types of schools.
Anymore?
Navy. Great institution. Not going to win a championship.
Okay, fair enough.
Next question is from Adam K63. Is the transfer portal something that's becoming too convenient for players?
Yep. But it has to be. Because, I'll say it. Bill Snyder wouldn't let players transfer. He just would delay the process. It just kind of hold them hostage. It was never fair. It was one of the things I didn't like about him. And he could, I understand what his motivation in some ways was, that slow down, you really don't want to do this, you're not going to want to uproot from school, your friends and everything, but it also played out like, oh, you're mine, I'm not letting you go. So the portal has to be convenient. It just has to be equitable and convenient. It probably should have some hurdles after you enter the portal to make it less convenient. I don't know what that would be. Like, learn juggling or something. You have another skill set. I'm not sure. But it is too easy right now to say, I quit, I'm in the portal, who wants me? And Dejuan Gordon's finding out nobody.
Yep.
Nobody. It is very fascinating to watch the guys that you think would go into the portal and have great success. They were a 5-star, 4-star guy, and they kind of sit out there a little bit because everyone saw their real value. And yet, was it the Michigan point guards from Harvard?
Yeah.
I don't really care that K-State got a guy from Arkansas Little Rock or Missouri. The Arkansas Little Rock guy could end up being better. You just don't know. You don't know how this is going to play out. You don't know how their game's going to translate to this level. The portal's too convenient. It's a mess. But now you can't just undo it and go back to the way it was, because that was wrong. So you got to find some way to make this a little bit more, challenging.
It's convenient for the players, but it's convenient for the coaches too. And K-State up until this year, K-State has not been good in the portal, at least for basketball. They've been bad. It's convenient. The portal's easy. You can go to the portal. You can find an experienced player who can make your team better. And K-State was bad at it and we still don't know what these two new transfers are going to do. If they're bad, K-State's still bad at using the portal. It's convenient to find players to help your team. So it's a two-way street, in my opinion. Yeah. It's easy. It's easy to enter, but it's also easy to go in there and say, hey, that guy can help. Let's get him out and get him into our team.
My thing is, I think maybe the portal needs to be two prongs, and I don't know how you play this out. Some guys are in the portal just because they want something better. Their academics are fine. They were in good standing with their previous program. Rudy Williams, I get why Rudy left. He's behind a really talented freshman point guard. He's going into his senior season. I don't know if he'll start at Coastal Carolina. He might, but it'll be a better situation for him. He'll play more. It should be. And honestly, there's guys like Dejuan and Antonio who aren't leaving by their own means necessarily. There's probably something going on with the program. Now, I think that might be quietly known out there, that might point to why they're having some issues. And a guy like Mark Smith, who was liked by his team, just hops right into a new program. And a guy like Dejuan, who had dreams of, I don't know, playing for the Knicks, I'm not sure where he thought he was transferring to, might end up at DePaul. You know, a lowly program that used to be great, but isn't a shell. It's a shell of what it was one day. So it's almost like there's two sides of the portal. There's the dark side and the light side. And the dark side is, we know you're in the portal because you got kicked off. And that's a different beast right there. It really is.
Next question, another one from Adam K63. Has COVID this year made a difference in this year's NCAA tournament?
I think it did early. I mean, I don't know what to do with UCLA. I can't figure this out. I can't figure out UCLA. I thought USC was a lot better than UCLA. In fact, I mean, I looked at a number of Pac-12 programs. I thought they're better than UCLA, and here we are. They're in the Final Four. My God, can Gonzaga get a break? It's incredible. It's unbelievable. Gonzaga, if you don't win a national championship this year, come on, man. What are you doing?
If they lose it to Baylor, at least it was Baylor.
Yeah.
And at least it's shaping up that we're going to get the game for the national championship that we deserve.
Right.
And how often can you say that we got the national championship that we truly deserved? Which really is not, even if Houston goes, I'm not really upset by that. But at least if it's Gonzaga Baylor, that is the matchup of the year, and we finally get something like that.
Yep, I agree. I don't know.
I think a viewing experience, it hasn't made that much difference. I mean, besides the fans, obviously not as many people being there, but I really like the fact that the announcers are in the arena as opposed to having to listen to the delay like we got to with ESPN Plus.
My conspiracy theory is ESPN just took the year off. It's like, we're going to save money on this, not send anyone. They could have sent people, and they could have been backed up. They're not on the court for the NCAA tournament. They could have been backed up just like the radio guys. Wyatt and Stan were up in the stands. They were up in one of those suites, weren't they? I don't know. I think the NCAA tournament's been fine. It's been good, and it shows that we can function just fine as a society if we take some precautions. Now, can we stop with the absurd mask theater on the sidelines? I am sick of seeing coaches with their mask around their chin.
Yeah.
They don't need a mask.
They're in a bubble.
They are in a bubble. They are tested basically daily. Nobody on that sideline, nobody in contact with those players has COVID. Unless it activated during the game, which I guess is possible. The reason the announcers are up and away, because they're not in the same bubble. They're away from the players. Everyone who isn't being tested on a regular basis is nowhere near those players. You don't need to have a mask on the sideline. It's ridiculous. The players are breathing all over each other on the court. The referees are running up and down the court. But then when they stop to talk to each other, they put a mask on. Come on. Jeez. It's that kind of stuff that are wearing people out.
Yeah.
I mean, setting aside any logic here. I mean, the reason we're doing this, the reason we're unmasked is I'm vaccinated, Zach's had it. And you two are young bucks that are going to defeat this thing with one hand tied behind your back. So, yeah, I mean, I appreciate the fact that they've pushed forward. And short of Virginia Commonwealth, we really haven't had a major issue. Mm-hmm. And that sounds like it was just because they were reckless.
How about Kim Mulkey's comments?
That was a little bit much.
It was. I understand the sentiment. She took it way too far. But I think that in lieu of stopping testing, you should say, okay, you're the Final Four. If you have problems, we'll just delay. We'll wait until you're okay to play. It may take a couple weeks, but she said that after they lost, she said that it'd be a shame if one of the teams came back positive and they made it all the way to the Final Four, the national championship game, and they had to be kicked out due to COVID.
So she said they should stop testing.
Yeah, so she said they should stop testing. Which, yes, I agree. It's a shame if they if they make it that far, but they should still keep testing. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're in the bubble. You've made it so far, doing all of this. The bubble, the quarantining, the testing. You're very unlikely to catch it if you guys all follow your protocol. If you all follow protocol and stay in your hotel rooms, you'll be fine.
And I know
another 7 days. It sucks, but you'll make it through as long as you don't break the rules.
Worse, getting COVID right before the national championship game. So don't do that. Yeah, that sheet went a little bit far, but. I think it emphasizes the fatigue people are having, because when you keep putting up rules that really don't have reason to the rule, like wearing a mask on the sideline, or wearing a mask while you're being interviewed by a reporter that's 6 feet away. What?
Or on Zoom.
I mean, yeah. So anyhow, I think they've done a marvelous job of staging it. I had a column up about how I think they can learn lessons from this, and my idea was, just have regionals in a site. Don't have it. I go back to 2000? What year was that? I had it in my damn column when K-State was in the first four, then went to Sacramento. If they'd won, they'd gone to Memphis, and if they'd won, the Final Four was in Phoenix. Now, since they lost to Cincinnati, so whoever came out of Sacramento ended up going back to Memphis. And then someone would have gone, out of Memphis. It might have been from a different quad, but ended up going to Phoenix. Why are we traveling that way? That doesn't make sense. Just go to a regional site.
Especially in years past where they talk about the jet availability. They have to wait days. You're still sitting around for at least a day or two, just waiting on a plane to take you home.
They only have so many jets that they got to connect all the dots to. Why are you making this so confusing? The Midwest Regional next year is in Chicago. Have Illinois be a site. I don't know my venues in Chicago, but there's certainly two big places besides the United Center where you can play the first and second round games. Have those, and they all meet at the United Center. You never have to leave Chicago. And if you're a fan or media, you don't have to leave Chicago. I'm going to go watch my team. The first two rounds are going to be in Champaign, which is, not far from Chicago. And then I'm going to go drive into Chicago.
Even if you're not in Chicago, if you're at least a car or a bus ride away from the Sweet 16, that's where you should play your first and second round games.
Like I said in my column, I think having the first and second rounds in Municipal Auditorium and Allen Fieldhouse makes a lot of sense. But you could do it at Wichita and Omaha. And then the teams could just hop in a bus and drive 2 hours. They're not above that. It shouldn't be. And then go into Kansas City for the regional. You could do it that way. Everyone has those kind of venues. So I don't know. I just think they make it too complicated, and I understand they want to spread it around the country. And the thought is, hey, next year, I can't remember what the first sites are next year, but they like to have, bluntly put, a site near Kansas so they can sell out a first, second round site in Omaha or, I don't know, Wichita, somewhere, and then they'd go to Chicago. I got news for you. If you play the damn first 4 rounds in Chicago, fans from Kansas are going to go to Chicago for 2 weeks. They have Walmarts there. They can get new jerseys. They can get new clothes. Just stock them up at the Walmarts in Chicago. They'll go buy their stuff there.
KU fans don't go to Walmart, Fitz.
Where do they go?
JCPenney.
JCPenney. Well, good luck finding one.
Last question of the podcast from Adam K63. Is it time for men's college basketball to go to 4 10-minute quarters and 5 fouls per quarter?
Yep. I do. I think, here's my thing is, men's and women's basketball are different in the way they're played, but they shouldn't be different in their rules. Now, maybe the 3-point line is different and the ball's different just because of the physical differences of the players. But why is one playing quarters and the other one playing halves? Why is college men's basketball the only one playing halves anymore? NBA, high school, international, it's all quarters. And it all makes sense why you would play quarters. It doesn't make sense to me. Now, I'm opposed to advancing the ball to the midcourt line for a timeout. I'm opposed to this, guys.
Is it midcourt in women's basketball? Or is it...
It's the same rules as the NBA.
NBA's not mid-court, though.
It's like behind, in front of the bench.
It's like 3/4 for NBA.
3/4, yeah.
But it's half court for women's, or is it still?
I
think
same? It's the same for the
exact
NBA,
same.
yeah.
Okay, so you were clearly in your offensive half.
Yes.
Yeah, I like the advance the ball rule.
I do too.
It improves the ending of the games. If it's a 3-point game and there's 2 seconds left and you have a timeout, instead of having to go 94 feet, you have to go 20 or just flip it inbounds and you have an actual shot at a 3-pointer.
So you get rewarded for doing nothing.
Yes,
but that's
my problem.
But it's the same for everybody. Yeah. It doesn't matter. One game, you're going to be behind one game and you're going to need the advance the ball rule. The rule, sure, it might benefit the other team when you're ahead, but you'll certainly take advantage of it when you're the team behind needing to chase. So
I think it shows more skill too. I mean, there's no skill in throwing up a 3/4 of court length shot to try and tie the game at the end of the game.
Yeah.
But if you get that timeout and you have a sharpshooter who can catch and shoot, then you're still in the game.
Unless you're Michigan.
Hey, that's a sensitive topic. We don't have to go there.
I think, it's
but
time.
yeah.
With the women, I feel like that was like an experiment for the men, for all of college basketball, and they did it for a year, probably thinking they'd implement it the next year across, the men too, and they just never did. And the women were like, we'll just keep it. It seemed like an experimental rule that was supposed to be, the trendsetter for all of basketball, and it just never ended up playing out.
Mm-hmm.
Do they still play halves in Division II, men?
I don't know.
I want to say that they might even.
I don't know.
I think in NAI it's 4/4.
Well, I'm talking like Division II, like Washburn and Fort Hays State. Do they still play halves there? Okay. I guess that'd be weird because K-State did play Fort Hays State this last year.
They did.
Wasn't a real game, though.
It wasn't a real game.
For Fort Hays, it was. That's it for the PowerCat podcast. Tune in Friday. Is tune in an appropriate way to say? In the podcasting world, in the streaming environment,
download, look for.
Look for.
Episode.
I like look for the Overtime podcast. I hope you enjoyed the first Overtime. I need to spend a lot of time listening to clips from The Office, Ted Lasso. What else? Brockmire. I need to build up some Parks and Rec. I really need to build up a larger catalog of sound effects. That would require some work. Probably not going to happen this week.
PowerCat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street Publishing.
With BlueLink Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading BlueLink Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.